Good morning, fight fans, and welcome to the Thursday, June 6th edition of the MMAOB Daily Show. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin. You guys can follow me on Twitter at MMAdamMartin. Find this podcast at MMAOddsbreaker.com and on our YouTube channel, as well as our SoundCloud. And the iTunes thing is still being worked on, but hopefully soon, guys, very soon, hopefully. You guys can also follow my work at Showdown.com, MMAnews.com, MMARings.net, and BJPen.com. A lot to talk about today. There's actually a card tonight, PFL 14. It's kind of, I guess, flown under the radar a little bit. PFL, I don't think, does a great job of promoting their fights. I talked a little bit about that with Cole Shelton yesterday. Definitely check that podcast out as well. We previewed UFC 238, every fight in the card. That's on our YouTube channel as well, and of course on MMAOddsbreaker.com. But today I'll be previewing PFL 14, talking about a couple of other fight announcements, and there's also an injury rumor that's been nixed, but I still want to mention it. I'll just start with that, actually. There was a rumor yesterday. Eric Cowell of MyMMAnews.com made a tweet saying that he'd heard Henry Cejudo was injured, and the fight with Marlon Moraes could be in jeopardy this weekend. And, of course, everyone started freaking out, saying, oh, God, of course this is going to happen. Of course, the UFC did have a backup plan. There's numerous other bantamweights in the card. So if there was an injury, it wasn't going to be a huge deal, although I do want to see that Cejudo fight versus Moraes. I think everyone does. But Cejudo went, talked to the media, and said that is false. He did admit that he did hurt his knee. He said he bumped his knee, but it's just a bump. He is fine to fight. So according to Cejudo, he's fine. He did jumping jacks for the media to prove that he's still healthy. So as of right now, and it's Thursday, the weigh-ins are tomorrow morning, that fight is still on. Who knows? I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. And that report actually is somewhat correct because he is technically injured, but it doesn't appear to be something that's going to affect the status of the fight, which is good because I can't wait for that Cejudo-Moraes fight. That is an amazing fight. Cejudo's a tremendous fighter, so is Moraes. Great matchup. Right now, that fight's still on. If anything changes, I'll let you know, guys. Hopefully, I don't do this podcast tomorrow morning and that fight is off because I really, really want to see that fight. But in the event there is an injury, is it really a big deal if Sterling or Munoz or Peter Yan stepped into a main event slot for a title? I don't think so. I think it's a good thing the UFC put all those bantamweight fights on the card. But again, hopefully that's worst case scenario. And as of right now, Cejudo versus Moraes is still going to be on the UFC 238 card. That fight's still official until further notice. But I just wanted to mention it because there was that rumor floating around yesterday. Okay, well, I do want to do the PFL card preview, but I'm going to talk about a few other small housekeeping announcements here as far as new fights go. Okay, so the UFC Greenville card has had a change to the co-main event. There's been an injury to Cody Stamann. And John Lineker, who recently complained that he hasn't been getting fights, has stepped up on short notice to fight Rob Font. This is actually a rematch. They fought before. They fought in 2016, and John Lineker won a decision in Brazil. This time they'll be fighting in the States, so not necessarily Font's hometown or by any means, but definitely closer to where he lives in Massachusetts. They're obviously fighting Carolina. I still think that Lineker's probably a better fighter, though. I mean, Rob Font's definitely a solid fighter. First off, Rob Font is coming off a win over Sergio Perez. He looked good in that fight. He's looked good in the UFC in general. He's, 6-3 in the UFC. That's a solid record. But John Lineker, I still think is really special. 12-4 record in the UFC. Coming off a split decision loss to Corey Sandhagen a couple months ago. Very close fight. Could have went either way. Before that, I knocked out Brian Kelleher and beaten Marlon Vera. Guy's a very solid fighter. I went on a little bit of a mini rant last week saying that the UFC is being very ridiculous, not giving this guy fights. He's just such a good fighter. He wants to fight too, so get the guy a fight. And now he's going to fight Rob Font. It's a rematch, but it's still a fight that I think Lineker should be favored to win because he did win the first fight. Yes, he's taking a short notice. Fights next. Well, it's actually in 2 weekends, so he's got 2 weeks to train for it. He's probably been training the whole time anyways. I do like Lineker in this fight. I think, it might be a little closer than the last time, but I just feel like he's the better fighter. Having said that, he needed a fight, so I'm fine with this match, even though it's a fight that, again, fought a couple years ago. It wasn't like it was a close, controversial fight. Lineker won pretty decisively, and I think he does win again. Although Rob Font's a solid fighter and could make things interesting, we'll wait and see what the line goes for that one. A couple other fights to get to here. UFC 239 has had a women's fight booked between Alyssa Gatto and Julia Avila. Let me just get to their records here. Alyssa Gatto, pull her out. I talked about her recently, actually. Her record's kind of strange, 6-0-2. So she has 8 fights and 2 of them are draws. Coming off a submission win. Before that was a draw. Very strange record, but a lot of finishes by submission. So definitely an intriguing prospect. Only 23 years old, out of Brazil. Taking on Julia Avila here, who is just getting her shirt out. There we go. 5-1. You can hear my dogs barking in the background. 5-1. She's coming off of a knockout win in Invicta, which was really nice. She has one career loss. It was a finger injury to Marcia Allen, who probably should be in the UFC herself. She's just a little bit of an older prospect, but she should probably be in the UFC. Anyways, the UFC 239 cards needs fights on the prelims. That's probably why this fight's been added to it. To be honest, I don't know if either of these fighters is UFC caliber. Although I will say this about Avila. The one thing that's interesting about her, look at her record, guys. It's kind of intriguing because she does have two very, very notable wins over Nico Montano and Marion Renault. So this has probably been a long time coming. She's an older prospect. She's 31, but she has those two wins that are really, really good wins. Gatto hasn't fought anyone close to that. Gatto's a lot younger, though, so definitely going to be curious to see the odds for this one. But, I mean, just based on those two wins, I think you got to kind of lean towards Avila here. She has two excellent wins against top-level opponents. We'll see, though. I got to look into that one more. I got to watch some more tape on them. But just based on those two wins, I think people are going to look at her record and be like, wow, those are some really good victories on her resume and tend to favor her. But we'll definitely have to wait and see how that goes. UFC 241 also had a couple fights announced. I like this one a lot. Devonte Smith against John Makdessi. Really good fight here. Devonte Smith, like this guy a lot. 10-1. He's on a 6-fight win streak. He obviously had a great showing on the Contender Series last year. And since then has won back-to-back fights in the UFC by stoppage over Julian Erosa and Dong Yun Ma. That's Dong Yun Kim Jr., basically. He's on a 6-fight win streak with all the wins by stoppage. All his career wins are by stoppage. The guy's an absolute beast. Taking on John Makdessi, of course, a long-time veteran of the sport. I think this is a really good step up for Devonte Smith. John Makdessi coming off 3 straight wins, actually, over Jesus Pinedo, Ross Pearson, Abel Trujillo. He's actually looked pretty damn good lately, but he's also 34. He's fought in the UFC a long time. And aside from a couple knockouts, like back in, 2013 and 2015, and also 2011, he's mostly fought to decisions his whole career. So I think that's going to be dangerous here against a guy like Smith, who's such an explosive, fast starter. I think you have to lean towards Smith, man. John Makdessi is a good fighter. Don't get me wrong, very solid. If it goes past the first round, Makdessi could possibly grind out decisions, outpoint Smith, out cardio him. But I like Smith. I think he knocks Makdessi out. To be honest with you, I think it might look like the Landon Venata fight where he got really knocked out. I think that might look like this. So definitely, I like the matchmaking here. It makes a lot of sense. I think Smith needs to fight a veteran. Makdessi's on a nice win streak here, but I like Smith quite a bit in this fight. Also, add to that card is a really intriguing featherweight fight between Sodiq Yusuff and Gabriel Benitez. Man, I'm like you. I know all you guys are like me. This guy Yusuff is an absolute stud. Looked really good in the UFC so far. 9-1 record. He's won 4 straight fights. Another guy who won the Contender Series and since then won back-to-back fights in the UFC against Suman Mokhtarian and Shane Moraes. I think the Moraes fight was a really, really good win for him. Close fight. Moraes is a good fighter too, and he won that fight. So good win for him. And taking it here on Gabriel Benitez, who let's pull out his record. Mowgli, what's his record? 21-6, 30 years old, former Ultimate Fighter, Latin America fighter. What's his record in the UFC? It's 5-2. He's back. He's coming off back-to-back wins over Humberto Bade and Jason Knight. Also has some pretty solid wins against guys like Sam Sicilian and Clay Collard. So he's got some solid wins in the UFC. He's looked pretty good at times. I think the Jason Knight fight, he was a big underdog in and won. But, man, I don't know. I think Yusuff's going to get this fight done, guys, to be honest with you. I'm very high on this guy. I think he's an excellent young prospect, and I think he gets the job done here. So, although I have respect for Benitez, and although you can't completely write him off, I do think Yusuff wins, and I think he'll probably be a big favorite here. I think the bettors have a lot of respect for this guy. So, definitely keep your eyes peeled for that one as well. That's UFC 241. That's the DC versus Stipe Miocic card. That card is very, very stacked so far. I cannot wait for that card. It's probably going to be one of the best cards of the summer, as well as UFC 239, which I just mentioned. So looking forward to those cards. All right, so let's just get to PFL here. PFL 14 takes place tonight at Nassau Coliseum in Uniondale, New York. There are 12 fights in the card right now. We don't have odds, so that's not good. Also, there was a guy who missed weight. Ronnie Marks missed weight. So I'm just reading this. The fight will be held as schedulable. Okay. So they're still going to fight, which is interesting. He's fighting this guy, Siga Pisalaleli. Ronnie Marks cannot win any points. However, his opponent has already got 3 points for a walkover win, but he can still get 3 more points if he finishes him in the first round. So interesting decision here because just say this guy goes in and gets injured or he gets knocked out and then can't fight again. It's very interesting. Personally, I would have just taken the walk and fought again later on. But, the guy wants to fight, so credit to him. But, I mean, Ronnie Marks is a pretty solid fighter, man. I don't know if this guy should have taken the fight, but we'll see what happens there. Anyways, let's just get to the rest of the card here. Main event of the evening is actually an interesting fight. I'm going to go from the top to the bottom, I guess. Why not? Vinny Magalhaes, a good friend of mine. I love Vinny. 18-10-1. 10-1 no contest record, taking on Emiliano Sordi here in the light heavyweight tournament. Vinny is coming off a TKO loss to Sean O'Connell in the finals last year, and he looked bad in that fight. But before that, he won 4 straight fights in PFL, so was one of the favorites to win the whole thing. Didn't end up getting the job done. Sean O'Connell won as a pretty big underdog, actually, but great story for Sean O'Connell. But this guy looked good. Vinny looked good. We all know his jiu-jitsu's good. He showed a really good ground game, beating guys like Brandon Halsey and Rakeem Cleveland. So Vinny's a solid fighter. Still one of the best guys at PFL. Taking on Sordi here, 28 years old, 17-8 record. The He-Man. He's coming off a TKO loss against Bazagate Atave. Beat Jason Butcher in the first round last year. They lost to Ryan Spann, the contender series. He's a solid fighter. This is a good fight. He has a ton of experience fighting in Bellator as well. This guy's fought everywhere, jungle fights. This is a really good fight. I think a very solid main event. We also know that Ali Abdelaziz and his connections to PFL, and he's also Vinny's manager. So no surprises in the main event. I tend to lean towards Vinny here, but only slightly. I mean, this Sordi guy definitely has some finishing ability, and Vinny's chin has been tested in the past. I love Vinny. I don't want to say he's chinny by any means, but he has been knocked out before. He knows that. We all know that. I think he will be favored because of that ground game, but don't be surprised if Sordi pulls this off. I'm curious to see the odds. We don't have them yet. I'm going to check just Best Fights, make sure we don't have them yet. Nope, nothing yet. It's crazy, right? The odds makers they've really been slacking on the PFL odds. They might come out later this afternoon, assuming they will, but I mean, geez, the card's tonight and there's no odds, so that's kind of a shame. All right, just getting to the rest of the card. Pretty good fight here. Heavyweight bout. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go do the light heavyweight fights, and then I'll go to the heavyweight fights. Okay, so the next light heavyweight fight, Rakeem Cleveland against Victor Nemkov, Rakeem Cleveland, 19-11, 1-1 record. The Boogeyman. He's coming off back-to-back stoppage losses against Vinny Magalhaes and Maxim Grishin. Beat Rashid Yusupov in the first round last year. He has a couple wins over Houston Alexander's record. Also, Brian Houston, who's a former UFC fighter. The guy's been around for a while. At times he's looked pretty good. He's fought a bunch of guys. He fought Derek Lewis twice as well, Bubba Bush. He's fought a lot of guys that have names, Mike Rhodes. Interesting fighter, 30 years old. Very inconsistent, though, judging by his record, 19-11. But definitely has some finishing power. Taking on Victor Nemkov here, 26-7, 32 years old of Russia. Coming off a win over Sergio Souza in Russia. Also, he lost to Clifton Abreu, who's in the UFC right now, last year by stoppage. But then before that, beat Ronnie Marks and Attila Vey, former Bellator fighter, by decision, and then Marks by stoppage. He's fought a lot of guys. Stephen Putz he's fought as well, and he's got some good names on his record. He's fought Vinny Magalhaes years ago in M1, lost. Fought Tony Lopez. This guy's fought everyone. Rakeem Cleveland's a decent fighter. I think you got to go with Nemkov here, though. Again, got to wait to see the odds. I'm saying this blindly right now, guys, but I would assume he's going to be favored just based on the fact he's coming off a win, I think, first and foremost. But just I think he's fought and beaten better guys in his career, has a better record. So I would say Nemkov will be favored to win this fight. Got to wait and see what the odds are. All right, I'm going to keep going down the card here. The other light heavyweight fights. I already mentioned the Ronnie Marks Siga Pacelli fight. Sorry if I'm pronouncing his last name wrong. It's a tough one to pronounce. Ronnie Marks. Let's get to him first. Former UFC fighter, 18-7 record, 31 years old. He's coming off back-to-back loss against Brandon Halsey and Sean O'Connell. I believe he actually works with Ali Abdelaziz now, which is interesting, at Dominance. And he's getting a fight that on paper he should win against a guy who's 0-0. That guy probably just wants to get a fight. But again, that's so dangerous that this guy is taking a fight against a guy like Marks, who he's being set up to lose to when he doesn't have to fight him. So that's interesting. But Ronnie Marks, honestly, he should win the fight, but the fact that he missed weight makes it a little weird. I would completely stay away from this one. And also, Marks' chin is not great either. So, interesting fight just based on the fact that he missed weight. But on paper, I mean, Ronnie Marks has way, way more experience. And, this is a weird fight. I'd just say that. This is about as weird as it gets. So, stay away from that one. Also, on the light heavyweight side, we have Rashid Yusupov taking on Mikhail Makdessi. So let's look at this one. Makdessi, 11-3-2, 29 years old of Russia. Coming off loss to Francimar Barroso. He's also fought Fabio Maldonado and beat him in Russia. He also fought Yuri Prochazka and fought him to a draw. That guy's obviously really good right now. He's beaten Valentin Overeem, Alistair's brother, by stoppage. He also beat Derek Neiman. So he has a pretty good record. Definitely an interesting prospect here, taking on Rashid Yusupov, 10-1 record, coming off a loss, to Rashid Cleveland. But before that, he won all of his fights, most of them by stoppage, including Victor Nemkov, who I mentioned already, and Stephen Putz, who's another decent fighter. Interesting fight for sure. I don't know. I mean, Rashid Yusupov definitely has a lot of hype behind him, but this guy, Naktin, excuse me, I'm pronouncing his name wrong probably too, but he's fought a lot of good guys. He also fought Sergey Pavlovich, lost this in there, but he has way more experience. I'd have to favor him a little bit just based on the experience. This guy's fought and beaten better fighters. So again, I gotta look into that one more, guys. And a lot of these PFL fights are very, very tough to bet on because a lot of these guys just haven't fought at the level that we expect them to, and the opponents they have that we expect them to have fought. But this guy, Makdessi, I mean, he's fought some good fighters, so definitely a guy to keep your eye on for sure. Next up, Dan Spawn against Sodiq Yusuff. Again, I'm going through the light heavyweight fights. So let's see here. Dan Spawn, 18-6 record. He's coming off a decision loss to Sean O'Connell. Before that, had won 6 straight fights. A guy who was in the UFC very, very briefly, had a cup of coffee there, lost a fight. But, he's had a pretty good run on the regional scene. He's fought some good guys over his career. A lot of notable names, Jeff Hughes including, knocked him out. So he has some good wins on his record. He's taking on Sodiq Yusuff, 19-3 record, 40 years old. This guy, I talked about him last year during the first season of PFL. Very interesting. I wouldn't say prospect at all. He's not a prospect. He's 40 years old. But a very interesting fighter because he fought in the early days of MMA. So he fought in 2000 back in the Rings organization. He also fought in Pride. He fought Alistair Overeem at Pride 24 and got knocked out by Overeem, a young Overeem, a smaller Overeem. He also fought Aaron Brink, who's a longtime veteran of the sport, Jeremy May. He's fought some interesting guys, so he didn't fight between 2006 and 2017. Since he's come back, he's gone 3-2, including a 2-2 record in PFL. He beat Sean O'Connell by knockout, and he knocked out Emmanuel Sordi, but got knocked out by Dan Spawn and lost by submission to Vinny Mugli. So he's a killer-be-killed fighter. I like this guy. He's 40 years old. He's been around the block. He's been around forever. I have a lot of respect for this guy, but I think you got to go with Spawn here, just a younger guy. He's 34, so he's not like super young, but younger guy, fresher guy. I think he probably wins the fight. Also, again, they fought before. It's a rematch, and Dan Spawn won the first fight. I don't see any reason why he won't win again, although, again, it's light heavyweight. Who knows? And what else? The last one I'm going to talk about here is Maxim Grishin against Jordan Johnson. So that's the last light heavyweight bout to talk about here. Interesting fight as well. Maxim Grishin, 28-7-1 record, 35 years old, Russian fighter. He's on a 6-fight unbeaten streak. He fought to a draw against Emiliano Rama in his last fight. Before that, beat Rakeem Cleveland and Jason Butcher. He also has a couple other notable, I guess, wins over guys. I don't know if they're notable necessarily, but there are guys that have names and fought in the UFC, like Trevor Prangley, Rodney Wallace, Mario Miranda, Joachim Christensen. So he's fought some guys. He's been around for a long time. He got knocked out by the late Shane Del Rosario back in 2009. So he's been around a long time. But again, he's got a pretty good record here. I just don't like this matchup here for him against Jordan Johnson, 30 years old, 10-0. A guy who UFC cut, or not cut necessarily, but they just decided not to bring him back. He went 4-0 in the UFC, but he had some issues, contractually had some issues with the matchmakers. Still, though, I mean, the guy was good in the UFC. He beat Adam Yandia in his last fight by submission, and then before that beat Adam Milstead, Marcelo Fortuna, and Henrique De Silva by decision. You got to go with Jordan Johnson here. Even though Grisham is a solid fighter with a lot of experience, you have to go with Johnson, undefeated guy, younger guy. Still a good prospect, just not the most exciting guy. And, he wanted to have more money, and the UFC was offering because he doesn't finish fights necessarily. So I like Johnson. He actually fought middleweight in his last fight. I like him better at light heavyweight. And I think he should be favored here, although I'm curious, again, to see the line for this fight. Okay, so let's just get to the heavyweight bouts. We'll start from the top again and work to the bottom. Kelvin Tiller against Mohamed Darius. So Tiller, 10-2 record. He's coming off a decision loss to Jared Rochelle, but beat him actually by submission the fight before that. Also beat Chal Alankar. He's also beat who else? Dan Spawn he beat by decision. In Bellator, he beat Jay Collier, former UFC fighter, by submission. Lost to Elvis Matapshis by decision. So he actually has some decent experience. Taking on Darius here, 7-0 record. A guy who was on The Ultimate Fighter. The UFC decided not to bring him back. He's coming off of actually a really solid knockout win over Mike Kyle. So that's a good win. He's 2-0 overall in PFL. So a solid fighter here. I don't know. It's a tough one to call. I mean, Tiller has fought better fighters, but Darius has an undefeated record as a pro anyways. Again, lost on the Ultimate Fighter. I believe to clear round trip. I can't remember exactly who it was, but I think it was. Let me double check that. Muhammad Reese Tough. I think that's who it was. Was it? Yeah, it was. Okay, so it is what it is. Yeah, it was Roundtree. It's not a bad loss by any means, but again, it's not even a pro loss. I don't know. We'll see what the odds are, but interesting fight for sure. Tiller's a big boy. He's got some finishing ability, so we'll see what happens there. All right. This is an interesting one. Satoshi Ishii against Ezekiel Willie. So Satoshi Ishii, 28-1 record, 32 years old, out of Japan. Long-time veteran in the sport. Fought everyone. Fought who's who. Fought in Bellator. Fought in K1. Fought in Dream. Fought in IGF. He's fought everywhere. Excuse me for the dogs barking, guys. I can't do much about that right now. Fought in Ryzen. He's coming off 5 straight wins. He's looked good lately. Hasn't beaten the best competition necessarily, but he's looked good. He's winning fights. Beat Heath Herring, beat Tony Lopez, so beat some veterans, but he's mostly lost every time he stepped up, which really concerned me here. Just in the tournament itself, but maybe not against this Willie guy. He's 3-1. He's never fought anyone. Like, he's fought Daryl Schoonover. That's the only guy he's fought that's notable. That was Titties from the Ultimate Fighter, the Rashad Evans, Quentin Jackson season. So he's beat him by DQ, but never fought anyone decent. I don't know. I mean, there's something here about this guy. He's from Hawaii. He trains at Extreme Couture. What's his name? Ray Seffel obviously has a lot of connections with PFL and with Extreme Tour, so they probably see something in this guy. But you got to go with Ishii here. All the experience. Ishii should be a big favorite, I would assume. All right, what else is there? Jared Roshalt's on this card too. Okay, the most exciting fighter in MMA, Jared Roshalt returns. I'm just joking. 17-6 record, 32 years old, coming off a TKO loss against Philip Leans, then beat Calvin Tiller the fight before that and lost to Calvin Tiller. So he's been very inconsistent. We remember him in the UFC. He had a really good record in the UFC. He went 6-2 and he got cut. He actually had wins over guys like Daniel Malanchuk, Timothy Johnson, Josh Copeland, Stefan Struve. So some good wins, but lost to Alexei Olenek, lost to Roy Nelson, and got cut. He's also lost to Derek Lewis early in his career. A guy who's a bit chinny, a bit inconsistent, but definitely a really, really good wrestler, high-level wrestler, big boy, taking on Dennis Golstov here, 28 years old, out of Russia, 22-5 record, coming off 3 straight wins over Ednato Oliveira, former UFC fighter, Chase Gormley, a former UFC fighter. He also has wins over James McSweeney, Mike Kyle, Paul Buntello, who else? Roy Booten, Brett Rogers. I mean, this guy has some good wins, decent wins. Konstantin Erikin. Like, these are guys that were in the UFC. So this is a guy with a decent record, guys. Jared Rochelle has that wrestling ability, and that's what so scares the hell out of me here, because he can just take this guy down and hold him there. But, I mean, this guy's got a lot of knockout power, and I don't trust Rochelle's chin. I'm curious to see the line on this one. I mean, if this guy, Golsov's the underdog, I would definitely take a look at him, because I think he could knock out Rochelle for sure. So definitely look at that one. That's an interesting fight. Again, we don't have odds, so I'm going at this blindly and kind of guessing who is going to be favored or not. All right, what else is there? Another one between Valdrin Istrafeli. I can't pronounce this guy's name either. Sorry, guys. These are tough names to pronounce. What's his name? Istrefi, excuse me. Okay, so 13-2 record, 20 years old, out of Switzerland. He's coming off a TKO win over Daniel Gallimore in PFL. He lost to Jared Rosewell for that. No other real notable wins, just looking through his resume, but a lot of wins by stoppage, which is interesting for sure. Taking on Ali Asaev, 35 years old, so he's older, but he's 4-0. He's fighting in Russia, a Dagestani fighter. Fought in Fight Nights. Again, not fighting anyone decent, but he's coming off a win by spinning wheel kick and punches. So that's very interesting. I would kind of favor this Russian guy. He might lack experience, but it looks like another fight that PFL is setting up the Russian guy to win. And I'm assuming this is another Ali client. So this guy's probably going to be favored to win this fight. Alex Nicholson versus Francis Barbarossa. That's the next one to talk about here. 2 guys that used to be in the UFC, of course. Alex Nicholson, 13-7 record. He's coming off a knockout loss, against Josh Copeland, and before that, knockout win over Jack May. Also beat Jake Hume by knockout, Rico Rodriguez by knockout at the infamous Cam Soda Legends card. He also was knocked out by Philip Lins and Ryan Spann. He was in the UFC a while ago. He went 1-3. He got finished by Jack Hermanson and Misha Serkinov, lost the decision against Sam Alvey, but did knock out Devin Clark, so that's a good win. He also knocked out Chase Sherman before, so this guy's definitely got a lot of knockout power, but he's chinny himself. Taking on Francis Barbarossa, 22-7, 1-1 record, 39 years old, very experienced fighter, again, from the UFC for a long time. He's actually on a 4-fight undefeated streak. Most recently beat Mikhail Makdessi, who I mentioned earlier. That was in Russia. That was out of the PFL. Definitely an interesting fighter. You know, he had a good run at PFL. He looked really rejuvenated. He won a couple fights by stoppage, including Jack May by submission and Daniel Galmer by TKO. He also has a win over Darren Stewart at UFC and Elvis Mutacic and the late Ryan Jimmo. So he has some good wins on his resume. It's a tough one to call, guys, because Barroso's a very solid fighter. And as far as knockout losses go, he's got, what, 1, 2, 3. It's not many knockout losses in his career, but he's been around a block. Nicholson has a lot of KO power. I just don't completely trust him. So I think this would be the classic stay away from fight. But I don't know. I think Barroso can grind it out. But we'll see. I mean, Nicholson could definitely catch him. So interesting fight for sure. I mean, this whole card is actually full of some good matchups. Just, again, it's hard to talk about them completely without the odds to look at. And then the last one is another heavyweight bout. The last one I want to talk about here. Carlos Montoya, Badwater, former Bellator fighter. We all know him. Scrap pack fighter. He's actually coming off a decision loss in his last fight. Before that, TKO win. And then we remember him from his Bellator run. He knocked out Avila, but he was knocked out by Mamet Trion and lost a couple other fights. Very inconsistent fighter, of course. He actually has 2 knockout wins over Avila, who's coming off obviously a knockout win over Frank Mir. So that looks really good in hindsight. This guy's been around forever. I remember watching him in Strike Force back in the day against LeVar Johnson. And even in the Elite XC, he fought Shane Del Rosario. I remember that one a long time ago. So, and also he fought Ruben Warpath Villarreal. So this guy's been around a very long time. But again, 11-9 record says it all. 10 knockout wins, 5 knockout losses. Scares the hell out of me. Taking on Ante Dalia, 28 years old, 15-3 record out of Croatia, coming off of a win over Ricardo Purcell, and then before that had lost to Marcin Tybura. So he took a 3-year break from the M1 experience to rising when he came back. But he does have a couple wins here, again, over notable guys like Rico Rodriguez, Valentino Overeem. You have to favor this guy. You can't bet on Montoya. He's way too inconsistent and way too chinny to bet on. But again, I'm curious to see what the odds are for this one. I would just keep refreshing fight odds if I'm, a betting junkie like a lot of you guys are, I know, and you want to put some action on the fights tonight. Just keep, refreshing those fight odds, and hopefully you'll see some odds pop up at some point. But right now, it's 11 o'clock in the morning on Toronto time, Eastern Standard Time. No odds yet, so the card I think starts at 6. We'll see what happens. But definitely an interesting card. I'll try to check it out. It's on TSN. I have a lot to do today. I got a lot of writing to do, but I'll definitely try to check it out. Definitely a good card. So I would say some interesting matchups on this card. All right, so that's all I want to talk about today, guys. I think that was a lot anyways. Definitely, I was actually pretty excited talking about that card and going through the matchups. So curious to see the odds again. Mentioned that many times in this preview, but please, odds makers, get these odds out sooner. I think it's just going to attract more interest to PFL. And PFL maybe it's got to pressure the odds makers to get these odds out more, because let's be honest, having odds out for fights and for sports in general makes sports more exciting. That's the honest God truth. So check that out. All right, so let me get to the plugs here. On Twitter at MMAdamMartin. Check me out there. This podcast, MMAOddsbreaker.com, YouTube.com/MMAOddsbreaker. Please subscribe to this. I appreciate you guys watching. I know you're watching right now, so thank you very much, guys. Check that out. What else? Okay, so as far as writing goes, Shootout.com, Prime Picks, I just sent in. BJPen.com, I have a couple articles there. Check it out on the front page. MMARatings.net, I just sent one in on Ferguson versus Cowboy. And at MMA News.com, I mentioned this the other day. I have a top 5 moments for Henry Cejudo and Marlon Moraes. And the last thing I want to mention, MMAOddsbreaker.com, I'm going to try to get these PFL opening odds reactions out. Hopefully I get them out today. Again, I don't know when these odds are coming out, guys, so hopefully soon. But I will have full previews for the Jessica Eye versus Valentina Shevchenko fight and the Marlon Moraes versus Henry Cejudo fight, which, as we know now, is still on. So we'll see what happens there. But as of right now, that fight's on. So check those articles out, guys. I appreciate you guys watching. Love doing this. It's a lot of fun, guys. I'll be back with you tomorrow for the Friday edition of the MMAOB Daily Show. But yes, for now, please listen, like, subscribe. I appreciate you guys, all the love. And I'll be back tomorrow morning to talk about some more news in MMA. Have a good day, guys.